improve candidate selection. First and foremost, the vast majority of organizations out there are using a very narrow set of predictors of performance. Consequently, they're looking at a very limited selection criteria, omitting probably most of the things which really are important to that role. For example, many organizations will require expertise in certain peripheral software packages that may be relevant to the role, but then they omit important things like cognitive ability and personality. Instead, you should expand these criteria, measure and capture as many of these predictors as you can. Next, you want to use these assessments as early on in the process as possible. Now, when you use interviews as a tool to shortlist, you're almost certainly going to screen out a large number of potential top performers based on a very limited skill set. If you use these ability tests, for example, personality questionnaires and situational judgment tests, early on in the recruitment process, you're much more likely to identify top performers early on, and then you only need to interview those key performers later. Next, conducting local validation studies is always a good idea. This will allow you to see which particular traits, skills, abilities, and characteristics are predictive of performance in your organization specifically. That will allow you to refine your recruitment processes, vastly improving candidate selection. Next, providing interviewers with training is another key step. Rarely are interviewers ever trained at all, and consequently, you can't really rely on the typical line manager to perform a decent interview if they've had no training in doing so. Consequently, send your managers on training programs, helping them learn how to conduct interviews effectively, almost certainly improving the process. And finally, expanding the candidate pool. Now, with large organizations, they benefit very much from having huge applicant pools. Consequently, they can take the top 10%, the top 1% of their applicant pool, almost certainly finding those really key top performers. Small organizations, on the other hand, may have a couple of applicants, almost all of whom are likely to be average. If you can expand your applicant pool, you can be more picky. By being more picky, you get the cream of the crop, ensuring that the highest performers make it into the organization.